In the Deep South, stories tell of the Grand Tapestry, an invisible weave holding our world together. When this tapestry is torn, evil spirits called Haints emerge. Periodically, a powerful storm awakens a weaver with magical abilities to mend these tears, vanish Haints, and restore the land. The tale begins in Prospero, a small town in Chickasaw County, where the last weaver was last seen. Hazel is alone, packing an emergency box to evacuate from an approaching hurricane. She reminisces about her track team days while gathering essential supplies. Frustrated that her mother is running late, Hazel continues preparing on her own while flash flood warnings sound. There's tension between Hazel's mom and grandmother Bunny, creating family strain that Hazel doesn't fully understand. Hazel's mother finally arrives, explaining she was helping at the shelter. An argument erupts as they rush to evacuate. When Hazel suggests staying at Bunny's hurricane-proof mansion, her mother firmly refuses without explanation. Their disagreement intensifies after Hazel accidentally breaks a family heirloom made by her great-grandmother. Feeling misunderstood, Hazel storms out to check on neighbors. Hazel visits neighbors Bo and Mrs. Pearl. Bo is having a hurricane party while Mrs. Pearl cooks gizzards before the power goes out. Mrs. Pearl provides perspective on Hazel's mother, suggesting she has good intentions despite her flaws. Their conversation is interrupted when the storm intensifies dramatically. The bridge is destroyed, and Hazel watches in horror as her mother's trailer is swept away. Desperate to find help, Hazel heads to her grandmother Bunny's mansion. Initially turned away, Bunny eventually recognizes her granddaughter and lets her in. When Hazel mentions seeing strange strands in the air, Bunny's demeanor changes. That night, Hazel experiences a bizarre dream where voices call her name and mysterious figures appear, including what seems to be her mother. Waking to find herself locked in, Hazel discovers a hidden room in Bunny's house containing strange artifacts and hooks that react to something called a stigma. Determined to rescue her mother without Bunny's help, Hazel escapes the mansion and heads downriver, following mysterious ghostly figures that appear to be from another time. Hazel traverses the hurricane-ravaged landscape, encountering more supernatural elements. She follows ghostly figures that seem to be from the past, possibly slaves seeking freedom. Despite questioning her sanity, Hazel decides these apparitions might be her best chance of finding her mother. She eventually reaches the river where her home was swept away, determined to overcome whatever obstacles lie ahead. There's a sense of urgency as they pursue something from the past. The protagonist expresses concern for their mother's well-being as they navigate through an unknown area, following clues and gathering potentially useful items along the way. References to a person named Chloe Drudge appear, along with mysterious symbols called stigma. The protagonist questions why they alone can see these symbols. They discover a hidden cave path that likely served as an escape route for others in the past. Excitement builds as they find what appears to be an exit route. Hazel is searching for her house downriver and encounters spirits that leave her stunned. She learns about Mahia, the last weaver of Prospero, and feels connected to this magic that now calls to her. As Hazel ventures farther from town, the world becomes increasingly strange and fantastical, with dangerous creatures from old folk tales lurking about. Sensing the river is close, Hazel hopes her house remains intact. She encounters obstacles and finds her mother's work binder, triggering memories that reveal her mother's struggles to shield Hazel from her work-related emotions. Hazel fears for her mother, but remains determined to find her, believing she must still be alive. Hazel encounters a talking fish who recognizes her as a weaver, though she doesn't understand what this means. The fish offers to help Hazel find her mother if she helps free him. He explains that the world is made of strands woven together, And when terrible things happen, these strands become knotted. Hazel must find a magic bottle to progress. Hazel locates a bottle tree and meets a suspicious man who initially mistakes her for a harmful spirit. After proving herself, he allows her to take a bottle to help capture pain. Hazel discovers she can see painful memories and begins collecting them in the bottle, witnessing the tragic story of brothers Rhubarb and Benji. As Hazel fills her bottle with painful memories, she learns more about Benji and Rhubarb's relationship. Benji was different and bullied, causing their family to move frequently. Eventually, Rhubarb grew tired of caring for his brother and made a horrible decision. Hazel experiences strange environments while collecting these memories. Returning to the talking fish, Hazel must use the collected memories to fix a tangle and help Benji. She discovers the terrible truth that Rhubarb trapped Benji inside a hollow tree, abandoning him there. Somehow, Benji became part of the tree. Using her newly discovered weaving abilities, Hazel attempts to resolve the painful situation. After completing her task, Hazel meets the fish at Rhubarb's dock. The fish asks for details about what she witnessed, revealing that weavers can fix things deep in the soul. Hazel reflects on her mother's work as a social worker who never felt she helped enough. As her adventure continues downriver, Hazel's powers grow stronger. Hazel discovered a giant man tree in distress and helped heal his pain by reweaving his knots and sealing a magic bottle in the Grand Tapestry. Once freed, the entity offered assistance in finding Hazel's mother, warning of dangers lurking in the murky waters beyond the gentle tree man. They ventured through flooded areas where her house should have washed up, encountering unexpected obstacles along the way. The guide expressed surprise that Hazel's mother never told her stories about critters and weavers. Their journey was interrupted by the presence of Two-Toed Tom, a massive gator. After helping Hazel escape the tree, the guide suggested ringing a church bell to drive the gator away, explaining that Tom couldn't stand the sound after church folks once tried to dynamite him. Hazel discovered drawings that revealed troubling information about her mother's past experiences. The picture showed her mother had witnessed disturbing events, making Hazel reflect on her own difficulty processing what happened to Benji. Despite these revelations, she remained determined to ring the bell as instructed to drive away the dangerous gator. To locate her mother, Hazel needed to travel closer to the river bend where their house had washed away. The journey brought forth memories of tales about massive gators, which now proved true. As they crossed the flooded area, old secrets emerged, while the legendary Two-Toed Tom continued to cast a threatening shadow over their expedition. The guide explained that flooding had caused pig farm and sewage overflow, creating a putrid smell. Hazel learned her house might have caught where the river bends, but reaching it required crossing Two-Toed Tom's territory. Despite the danger, it was the most direct path to finding her mother. The guide warned Hazel to avoid getting eaten before departing. Hazel prepared to fill the bottle and confront the giant gator. She discovered remnants from her house and expressed emotional attachment to these objects as her only connection to her mother. A peculiar companion joined her quest, able to access small spaces Hazel couldn't reach, proving helpful despite the bizarre circumstances. The origins of Two-Toed Tom were revealed. He began as old Farmer Swope's pet, a man who starved his family for obedience. Problems started when Swope's daughter Jolene became defiant. Hazel discovered that Jolene's church was nearby where people were taking shelter. There, she reunited with Pearl and learned her mother never returned home after the storm. Determined to find her mother despite warnings about Two-Toed Tom, Hazel continued her search. She learned Tom's tragic backstory, how Jolene's father starved the alligator, driving him to violence when triggered by the dinner bell. Hazel struggled to believe the small creature from the story could become the monster now pursuing her. The full tale of Tom emerged. Driven by hunger, he allegedly bit off his own toes for sustenance. When Jolene rang the dinner bell, Tom attacked her father. Despite her involvement, Jolene dedicated herself to good works, hoping for divine judgment. Hazel was shocked to learn Jolene had set two-toed Tom free. Heading toward the pig factory and the river bend where her trailer might be caught, Hazel encountered a horrific scene and overwhelming stench. She learned how Tom discovered the pig farm after Jolene released him, consuming everything in sight due to his insatiable hunger from early deprivation. Hazel reflected on her mother's wisdom that hurt people often hurt others. Finally spotting her house, Hazel called out for her mother while evading the massive gator. Unable to reach the house directly, she realized she needed to clear away the obstacles blocking her path. Inside, she found childhood mementos that triggered bittersweet memories, but no sign of her mother, only red yarn scattered throughout. After confronting the gator, Hazel discovered her mother wasn't in the house. Her guide explained the red yarn indicated Hugging Molly had been there, a creature from childhood warnings who steals children and leaves red yarn behind. Stunned to learn this folklore figure was real, Hazel realized Molly must have taken her mother, continuing the pattern that once claimed Hazel's father. The guide revealed that Bunny Flood was the only person who had confronted Hugging Molly and survived. Bunny became obsessed with finding Molly, collecting information about her whereabouts. The guide took Hazel to Bunny's weekend house, warning it might contain traps from Bunny's questionable methods of gathering information. Inside, Hazel discovered more connections between her mother's past and Bunny's family. There's mention of someone refusing something related to flood money. The characters discuss choosing a different ring together, implying a previous disagreement about jewelry preferences. The mother rarely speaks about the father, but apparently they didn't concern themselves with what someone named Bunny thought of their decisions. The journey is interrupted when the road is discovered to be washed out. The characters arrive at Bunny's cottage, which evokes a creepy feeling. There's something unsettling about the place that suggests a troubled history. While exploring, signs of danger become apparent, creating tension as they investigate the property. References to Bunny's daughter Cherie emerge, whom Bunny had hoped to groom into someone who would carry on her legacy. The narrative shifts to revealing tragic family history involving Hazel's father and an accident. Apparently, when his sister got her dress dirty, Hazel's father Trey tried to rinse her off in water, but didn't anticipate how slippery it would be, resulting in a tragic accident. The tragedy had profound consequences. Trey essentially lost both his sister and his mother, Bunny, that day, as Bunny never forgave him for the accident. This revelation shocks the protagonist, who wonders if their own mother knew about this history. The narrative continues with exploration of Bunny's home, revealing that she had buried all her children, suggesting multiple family tragedies. The protagonist explores Bunny's empty home, examining family business partnerships displayed like trophies. They search Bunny's room for information about someone named Molly. Personal items reveal glimpses of Bunny's past, photos showing her looking beautiful and in love, suggesting a different side to her character. The exploration uncovers disturbing elements. A mysterious room filled with research materials on walls. Something identified as a chunk of Benji, and a large feather. Wall displays show photos of missing children with red yarn connections. Shockingly, the protagonist discovers their father was among those who went missing. Bunny confronts the protagonist about their snooping. The conversation reveals they are both weavers, people with special abilities. Bunny offers to help find Hugging Molly, a mysterious entity that takes children and leaves red yarn. Bunny reveals that Molly once took the protagonist's father when he was young, but Bunny rescued him. Bunny explains that Molly specifically targets weavers because they can mend the chaos Molly's kind creates. She suggests Laurent Baptiste from the Juke Joint might know where to find Molly. Bunny asks to be informed if Molly is found, showing particular interest in this information. The protagonist is determined to find Molly to rescue their mother. The story shifts to an encounter with another character who expresses surprise that the protagonist survived meeting Bunny. This character warns that Bunny always wanted to get her hands on a weaver, and questions whether Bunny might be using the protagonist. Despite these warnings, the protagonist is determined to proceed with their plan. A tragic backstory emerges about Bunny's daughter Cherie. After her death, Bunny refused to let her soul move on, instead trapping it using magic stolen from Benji's tree. This unnatural act was driven by Bunny's desperate hope to resurrect her daughter, without consideration for what Cherie might have wanted. The protagonist heads to the Juke Joint to find Laurent Baptiste, despite reluctance due to their history. Along the way, they find old photographs showing Laurent with the protagonist's mother, suggesting they once had a loving relationship, despite Laurent's apparent fear of himself. The protagonist harbors resentment toward Laurent for abandoning them. At the Juke Joint, the protagonist confronts Laurent about his abandonment. When asked about hugging Molly, Laurent becomes defensive and dismissive, particularly when Bunny is mentioned. The conversation grows heated as the protagonist expresses anger over Laurent leaving their mother. Laurent insists it wasn't their fault but his own, warning he's not safe before transforming into something dangerous. The protagonist considers reweaving Laurent, suggesting they've done this before with others named Benjamin and Tom. Flashbacks reveal Laurent's traumatic childhood. His mother died because his father, who was paid in company script rather than cash, couldn't afford a doctor. Laurent was forced to grow up too quickly, hunting for food and caring for his depressed father. Laurent's story is revealed. He lost his mother and was consumed by grief. When he confronted the factory boss, his father tried to stop him. Seeing Laurent's pain angered his father. The frightened boss accidentally shot Laurent's father, killing him instantly. Overwhelmed with anguish, Laurent transformed as his emotions burst through his skin like feathers. The terrified sawmill boss fled in his expensive car, while Laurent, consumed by torment, flew after him. Despite his appearance, Laurent isn't a monster. He attempted to protect others by warning them it wasn't safe. When Hazel approached him, she insisted she could help him not be consumed by his pain. The situation escalated to a confrontation, but was eventually resolved. After an incident, Hazel attempted to reweave Laurent, but something went wrong. Laurent clarified this was his true form that he'd had for longer than he could remember. He explained how his mother's death broke him, and when the factory boss killed his father, he did something terrible he can't fully recall. He came to covered in blood, haunted by his actions. Lorenz shared how his pain festered inside him and how he tried to suppress it to avoid hurting others, especially Hazel and Lacey. He remembered how Lacey was happy around him, but she saw him too clearly, which scared him. Despite Lacey caring for him despite his flaws, his fear of messing things up caused him to push her away, hurting her more. The conversation shifted to Molly. Laurent explained that a hurricane took his mother's house, and though he found the house, he couldn't find her. He saw red yarn around, which was Molly's doing. Laurent realized Molly must have Lacey and agreed to take Hazel to Molly's lair, though he admitted he'd never managed to reach it himself. Laurent knew about Molly's whereabouts but was transformed into an owl when something about Lacey upset him. Hazel used her magic to reweave Laurent's wounds, restoring him. Though his guilt and shame would take time to fade, he and Hazel headed toward Molly's land, with Laurent expressing uncertainty about reaching their destination. Hazel continued her journey to find Molly, who was up in an area called the Witch's Nose. Determined to find her mother, Hazel refused to let the hills stop her. She got a boost from some helpers and discovered items from a trailer, including her mother's comments about always bringing a first aid kit. and how children needed more than band-aids could fix. Our mother cared deeply about saving children, and someone named Jolene might have known a way to help outside the system. Hazel followed cave passages, hoping they would lead to the mountain pass. She was determined to locate her mother, despite the challenging journey. Lorenz took Hazel as close to Molly's lair as possible. With her growing power, Hazel soared on a gust of wind. As she approached the house on the hill, she felt apprehension, but knew she had to go through a haunted area to find her mother. Hazel encountered a man named Itchy who claimed to know about the creepy house. He told a story about Molly being a she-devil who took children from their beds. Itchy presented himself as the only schoolboy Molly never took and offered Hazel a tour of the places Molly terrorized for $1 fee. Itchy's story revealed that children who visited Molly's house returned with toys and treats. Though Itchy was suspicious, he noticed red yarn, like what Hazel had seen at the trailer, wrapped around a body. The day before finding that body, he had visited Molly's house and spilled his secrets about his abusive father, Pappy. After his father's death, Itchy blamed himself, thinking if he hadn't told Molly about the abuse, maybe his father would have found a way to love him. Hazel recognized that Itchy shouldn't bear this guilt. He was just asking for help. Despite his trauma, Itchy remained tenacious in telling his story. Hazel questioned Itchy further, particularly about why Molly didn't take him. Itchy initially claimed he fought her off, but when pressed, admitted the truth. He was too afraid to go with her. The Hollow Folk later found a monstrous creature at Molly's house instead of an old recluse, causing her to flee temporarily before returning for the children. Hazel entered what appeared to be Molly's lair and found items from her own house, including something that belonged to her mother. She discovered evidence suggesting her mother might have been helping Molly. She found a beautiful item made by her mother, but was confused about why it was there. Hazel squeezed through a gap and discovered her mother unconscious. She tried desperately to wake her, becoming angry and blaming Molly for her mother's condition. A confrontation ensued, and rising water created additional danger. In the darkness, with burning lungs filled with water, Hazel experienced a flash of red. In a moment of clarity, Hazel realized that Molly wasn't harming people, she was healing them. What appeared monstrous was actually an act of care. Hazel had misunderstood Molly's intentions and now recognized that Molly had been helping her mother all along. A dramatic confrontation unfolds where children warn that Lacey woman doesn't like mean people. The children revealed they were rescued by a woman who resembles someone present. These are the missing kids previously mentioned as failed by the system. They explain that Molly, seemingly a supernatural entity, can save someone. There's a realization that Molly helps people. When someone tries to interact with what appears to be a rabbit or animal, they're warned it's wild. A character insists this creature helps people and has saved their mother. Another character reveals sinister intentions, stating the creature will now save their daughter. A struggle ensues as someone tries to stop the creature from being harmed. The confrontation escalates with accusations of murder. Someone named Cherie is referenced with great emotion, suggesting she deserved peace. A character is revealed to have been using another with the ominous statement, "Why should I borrow what I can just take?" A cruel comparison is made between someone and their mother, followed by calling someone a mistake. The narrative shifts to a new speaker who previously helped a character named Hazel, providing a helping fin. The perspective changes to Hazel, who describes falling through the air, feeling betrayed, but concerned only about her mother. Hazel finds her mother only to lose her again, discovering her mother's secret life rescuing abused children by using Molly's help. The setting changes to a mysterious place where Hazel seems to enter a dreamlike state. she discovers her mother is being held somewhere. A character with a galaxy in their right eye is revealed, identifying themselves as associated with Kushma's cabaret and claiming Hazel's mother is waiting there. Hazel blames herself for her mother's disappearance. She encounters someone who praises her weaving skills. Hazel discusses her dream about a man with a galaxy eye who took her mother. This man is identified as Ru, the right-hand man of Kushma, described as the king of dreams and nightmares. Hazel discovers her possessions are missing but remains determined to find Kushma's place to rescue her mother. She searches for her spindles while exploring what appears to be her mother's memories. She finds her track shoes and hears her mother's voice expressing regret about missing Hazel's track meet due to work commitments. Hazel encounters dangers in this dreamlike environment. She learns about Mahalia, identified as the last weaver, who seems to be guiding Hazel through this strange world. Hazel follows Mahalia's guidance while avoiding hostile elements in this surreal landscape. A mysterious blanket pattern is discovered, having been present all along. Someone with shorter legs struggles to keep up with their companion. Upon spotting something concerning, one person warns the other to stay back while requesting assistance. The scene shifts to a boat that needs investigation, as it might be connected to a crash. There's mention of feeding pain to others. A haunting story unfolds about a missing baby that could not be found. A grief-stricken wail echoed through the swamp, causing a captain to run a boat aground in panic. The raw emotion was so powerful, it seemed capable of tearing the world apart. A brief moment of connection is acknowledged, as a few days of love, followed by laughter. Someone navigates through tangled trees before noticing another presence nearby. There's urgency to remain steady just a bit longer. The narrative reveals that Ayotunde never stopped searching for her lady, and the search transformed her. She was unaware of the swamp's magical properties, or that a giant flower had protected her baby. In her grief, she became a vengeful force that destroyed a boat and its crew. A tense moment occurs as someone instructs another to stay put, offering protection because of potential misrecognition. A reassurance is given that Mama will be present by morning. The scene shifts to someone named Mahalia, who has finally been caught up with. There's mention of a lantern and a lander, followed by introduction to a character called Shaking Bones, who transports desperate people to unknown locations. Someone hopes Shaking Bones could lead to where their mama is being held. Another warns against riding with Shaking Bones to reach Cuspin's realm, describing it as a place where desperate people become trapped in inescapable suffering. Despite this warning, the determined individual insists on continuing their journey, promising to return, while the other expresses concern about missing how the tale ends. There's empathy for the suffering endured by a woman, with relief that Honey was reunited with his mother. The narrator experiences envy watching this reunion, yearning to see their own mama again. Their powers won't allow a direct return, requiring a leap of faith via a one-way journey to a place even their fish companion wouldn't venture. They receive directions to follow the river to find a town depicted on a tapestry. After thanking someone for a ride, the traveler must determine which direction to take. They discover a crossroad and realize they're on the right path, despite something seeming different. They encounter signage for Root the Magician and enter a space that appears larger inside than outside. Inside, they find disturbing evidence of survivor's guilt and recognize their own belongings mysteriously present in this location. Someone named Hazel is greeted and told their mama is fine and fully healed. A proposition awaits at Kushma's cabaret with advice to change attire. Hazel finds themselves in an extraordinary setting with many strands, attempting to reach Kushma's. Though the direct path is blocked, a tower offers an alternative route that requires climbing. Despite feeling manipulated, Hazel perseveres toward the cabaret, coming one step closer to their goal. At Kushma's Cabaret, a performance unfolds about guilt, regret, and Kushma's power to change past mistakes. A dream maker who offers bargains and chances to choose new endings. Someone gives Hazel an item to find their mama, asking only for a future favor in return, with assurance that mama is waiting. Hazel, hoping this will work, enters the thickest fog they've ever experienced, feeling immense pressure to reach the cabaret. Hazel returns to a time before a hurricane, with an opportunity to change past events. They've packed belongings and await their mother's return, feeling intense emotion upon seeing her. The mother has only been gone hours, but Hazel insists they must evacuate immediately. Despite clearing the road for departure, Hazel senses something is wrong, recognizing a familiar fog that signals this isn't reality, but an illusion. Kushma acknowledges Hazel's unique ability to break through illusions. Hazel learns the town runs on powerful nightmares that sustain Kushma's magic. Hazel was brought there as a potential dreamer powerful enough to tame Kushma's hunger. Hazel's mother is trapped somewhere in this realm, in a loop of despair. Despite warnings about Kushma's power, Hazel refuses to leave without their mother, vowing to fight until death. Determined to rescue their mother from Kushma's realm, Hazel navigates through obstacles. They eventually locate their mother, trapped in a traumatic loop where she believes Hazel has been injured or killed. Hazel confronts the entity keeping their mother captive, declaring it cannot hold her forever. Through persistence, Hazel finally breaks through to their mother, who is overjoyed and relieved to discover Hazel is alive. In an emotional reunion, Hazel's mother realizes they're in an unfamiliar place. She notices something different about Hazel's appearance, describing the change as impossible. The transformation suggests significant time has passed, or that their journey through Kushma's realm has fundamentally altered Hazel in ways that even their mother can perceive. A tense conversation unfolds, where someone needs help and cannot complete a task alone. There's mention of hugging Wally and finding kids in need. Trust becomes the central theme as one person asks the other to hold on to a bottle while they handle the rest. The exchange concludes with a prayer for protection. A task is completed, followed by a scene transition to a familiar place. A character questions where someone is, only to be told she's safely back in Prospero. The character is reminded of a previous promise made at Kushma's Cabaret, a favor for a key that now needs repayment. The request involves delivering a hairbrush to the character's grandmother. Resistance follows as the character has their own issues with her. The grandmother is revealed to be a false stitcher who uses dark magic and corrupts the Grand Tapestry. The hairbrush is actually a one-way trip to Kushma, the king of dreams and nightmares. After agreeing to deliver the brush, the character experiences losing their mother again. This emotional devastation is exactly how Kushma thrives. Breaking free from the illusion and bottling Kushma with their mother's help created a profound sense of accomplishment, more meaningful than any gold medal ever won. However, unfinished business remains in Prospero. An emotional reunion between Hazel and her mother occurs. They apologize for past arguments and acknowledge their love. Despite her mother's concerns, Hazel insists she must visit the flood mansion alone to fix something important. They exchange declarations of love before parting. Hazel approaches a confrontation, unsure what to say, but knowing that the source of stigma was coming from this person all along. She hopes for understanding to resolve the situation. A confrontation with someone named Lily reveals dark actions involving Molly's heart and attempts to resurrect Cherie. The grief-stricken Lily explains her pain after Cherie drowned, expressing anger toward those who still had their children. Hazel acknowledges the pain, but condemns the harmful actions, including Molly's murder. Hazel offers Lily a solution, a place for those who cannot move on. She presents Cherie's baby brush, which becomes a vessel for Lily's departure. The scene ends with a reflection on the fine line between mercy and justice. After an intense confrontation, Hazel confirms she's unharmed. She mentions having much to share, and the listener offers time to hear it. The narrative concludes by noting how a new weaver came to prosper, with Hazel Flood receiving appreciation before departing to meet Ma Laurent for dinner.